And thank you, Jenna, for recording. And we will get this out to all those questions answered at the end. All right. So the very first thing I want to go over is when you're using social media, you need to make sure you have a good foundation. And to me, that foundation is making sure the information you're putting out on your networks is truthful, it's accurate. So if you are, this can go down to like sharing an event time and date. So just double checking, am I sharing the right date? Am I sharing the right time? When you look at your sources, often people will share news stories. You don't want to share news stories from highly divisive news channels or highly biased news channels. So you want to make sure your news is like your local news station or something that is very middle of the road, talking about issues or talking about information that you're sharing. And that goes into considering your audience. Hopefully you have a diverse audience and lots of folks are interested in the work that you're doing. So you want to make sure that your social media content isn't going to alienate anyone or offend anyone. You also want to listen. So something you really want to see when you're using social media strategically is that folks are engaging with the content you're putting out. So you're getting messages, you're getting comments, people are feeling something about what you're sharing, and you want to be hearing what people say. You want to be responding to those comments. Obviously, if somebody is posting something nasty or looking to be argumentative, you want to just let that go and ignore it. And spell check, so easy. A trick I do is I create my posts in advance and make sure my spelling is correct, my grammar is correct, so that before it goes into my social media, I've done all that spell checking to make sure there aren't any problems. And so a good acronym here, thinking about this foundation, is just be smart about what you're putting out there. So now we're going to start talking about what are you going to post. So you have a good foundation, you're truthful, you're factual, you're respectful. So what type of content? So when you think about using your social media, you probably have lots of goals. You might be sharing information about events, you're attracting volunteers, maybe you're trying to fundraise, maybe you want folks to visit your website. You can do all of those things, but what's really helpful in helping you craft messages that are going to resonate with people is identifying a primary reason for why you have social media. And for West Virginia Rivers Coalition, our primary goal is to drive traffic to our website. So we do lots of things, but we always are thinking about how can we get more eyeballs on our website. So if you have, just as you're brainstorming, or if you already know, why does your organization, what is your primary goal for being on social media? If you're feeling comfortable, put that in the chat. So once you have that primary goal, you can think about who do you need to reach to achieve that goal? And that person is called your audience. So I want to do like a little case study here of a watershed group that needs to attract water quality monitoring volunteers, which is something I know a few of you do. So let's take a look at what type of content you might post for this audience. So when you think of a water quality monitor, who are they? There's a lot of qualities that go into who often becomes a volunteer. And I put some traits there that I know at the Rivers team that we look for in volunteers. So people with time. What does that mean? Oftentimes that means they're retired, people that have an interest in the environment. So they want to do something to protect the area they live. They need to be local. They can't be traveling from far away to monitor your watershed. They're probably outdoor recreators. Maybe they fish, or they are rafters or rock climbers, and they most likely have an interest in science. So I put a picture here, and you shouldn't recognize anyone in the photo because these folks are out of Virginia water quality monitoring training. And you can see, just looking at that picture, folks tend to be a little bit older. There's some younger folks in this picture who I happen to know are related to a university. So students looking for volunteer hours, students that are interested in getting into the environmental field. So something I like to do when I think about my audiences is have real people or real pictures in mind of the people that I'm trying to talk to. So if you're trying to reach this audience that is interested in science, likes outdoor recreation, has free time, what type of social media content would attract the attention of these people? So here's a whole list of ideas of what I might post to bring those folks in. Photos are so great. Whenever West Virginia Rivers posts like a beauty shot of a watershed or a river or a scenic view, we get so many likes and shares because it attracts the eye and attracts attention. And we don't have to do a lot of explaining. So it's easy content for us to share. News stories are so important to raise awareness of concerns. They're timely. So on social media, if you have something happening that's in the moment that people are talking about, it's great to be able to talk about that news story. I know Paint Creek Watershed Association had that spill on the turnpike. And when I went over to their Facebook page, they had so much interaction when they shared the news story. And I'm hoping that they had more folks learn that Paint Creek Watershed Association exists and folks interested in getting involved. Something that I love to share and something people love to see are pictures of animals. So if you have a photo of a toad along your creek, if you share that, folks are really going to interact with that and enjoy seeing it. So everything doesn't have to always be serious or issue-based or calls to action. It could be content that will resonate with the audience you defined on the previous slide. Something that I like to do, where if I don't have anything I need to post related to programming or objectives, is you can do themed days, which is really great to start getting into the habit of posting on social media. And you can plan these long in advance. So my example here is a Water Wise Wednesday. So maybe you just share a tip about how many gallons of water go into creating beer. I don't know, but you can share just interesting factoids under a theme that you can find in advance and schedule out so that you're not always trying to come up with new original content. You can have something pre-planned and themed, which is really, really helpful. Does anybody have any other post ideas of what they might share to attract water quality monitors? If you do, go ahead and put that in the chat. Oh, Karen, I see you posted on what you're wanting to do with your watershed is raise awareness. Yep. Posting events. That's fantastic. Yep. How fun it is. Yeah. People smiling, recreating. Yep. Those are all things that would reach that imagined audience that we're using as we talk about it. So I want to take a look at some success stories. I did a little perusing Watershed Network members' Facebook pages and came up with some posts that I thought were really successful. This one by Potomac Valley Audubon Society. What I love about this post and what their supporters love, look at that interaction, 24 engagement, 13 comments. That's a really well-performing post. So things that stand out to me, smiling face of a staff member. If I look at the West Virginia Rivers website, our number one visited page is the About Us staff. So people are really curious to know who the faces are behind your organizations or who your board members are. Smiling faces and eyes also draw people in. And when I looked at Potomac Valley Audubon Societies, I love that they used a lot of themed days for posts. So they had all these interesting tidbits of information that they could plan in advance and post out that were engaging and interesting. So it's a feed that if you're trying to share information and engage people and who your organization is, these type of posts do a great job doing that. So up next, we have Friends of Deckers Creek. They also do a themed post. So they have their Feature Friday. And here they have a great photo spread of 3 different photos, people doing active work and sharing information about what they're doing. And people really engaged with that type of post. So I wanted to highlight that as a really successful information sharing about the current work an organization is doing. So here we have Warm Springs Watershed Association. So they're looking to attract some new volunteers into the work they're doing. And here's this picture. It's a warm photo of people being active, volunteering for the organization, and it's inviting people to come join them in the type of work they do. So I thought that was a great example of how to try to bring people into your organization. And Friends of the Cheat here, looking at their page, they're really focused on bringing people to events that they're hosting. So they really take advantage of the feature in Facebook using events to share information, times, dates, where things are happening. So I just wanted to highlight some success stories that you all are already doing. Okay, so we know why we're on social media. We know who we want to reach on social media. So now let's talk about choosing the right channels to be on. And something I think organizations, and it's certainly something that West Virginia Rivers considered was, well, we need to be on all of them, right? And that's not true. It's better to choose 1 or 2 platforms to really focus on and be diligent in producing content than to try to do everything. So if you're trying to be on every channel, but you can't keep up with it, or you're spread too thin, even using 2 different social media platforms, it's totally fine to just be on Facebook and that's it. So don't feel like you need to do everything. You can post the exact same information on all of your channels, and you can even do it at the same time if that's easiest. It does not need to be complicated to adapt your content for another channel. So I'm going to go through 4 main social media channels here on the next couple slides. And those different channels reach different audiences. So when you think about where you need to be, you can think about the age of your audience. You can think about where do you know your current members are active? If you have a meeting or you have an event, you could just casually ask folks if you're not already on social media, hey, where do you like to get information? So hopefully these next couple slides will help you decide what's right for you. And we've already seen some success stories in social media. You have a whole network of watershed groups here who you can talk to and share success stories and share, hey, this worked really well for us. So make sure you're following each other's social media pages so you can get ideas, share each other's content, and really help build that movement. All right, so here's my intel, and this is from our consultant. So she did this great deep dive into different channels, who they reach, and how they work. So the first two I'm highlighting here are Facebook and Instagram. They're both through the same company, which is called Meta, which is what Facebook is, but Meta is their parent company. And if I chose two top platforms, these are who I would recommend. Facebook is number one. Almost everybody uses Facebook that has a social media presence. And there are so many ways you can create content. We talked about events earlier. Somebody popped that in the chat. Friends of Cheat really takes advantage of using the events. They're a great way to share that information. And sometimes Facebook pages can even stand alone and serve the same function as a website to some degree. There are fundraisers on Facebook. You don't get the names of the people who donated, but you do get the money and there's no processing fees. You can live stream video, which is really great if you're having a presentation like this on Zoom that you want to share to the public. You can do a live video from a watershed monitoring training or from a fun event to try to get people to come out. You can link to news stories, and it's great for photos and pre-recorded video. Facebook tends to have an older demographic. So you're looking at more folks that are 40 and older. Instagram tends to reach the millennials and Gen Z. So it sways a little bit younger, but from what some reading I've been doing, that might be shifting a little bit. But Instagram is different than Facebook in that you couldn't link to a news story. You have to share a photo. So each post on Instagram is visual based. It's a photo, it's a video, it's something that people look at to get the information. You have to share links in a very special way. So if somebody's looking at Instagram on their phone, they can't click a link. If you're on Instagram, I highly recommend that you use stories so that every post you make in your feed or every video reel you create, make sure you're sharing that to your stories. Stories are fantastic because you can add a link to a story. And I'm sorry if this is content for some of you that are totally lost and don't know Instagram, but I'm hoping this is helpful for people that do use Instagram, but maybe aren't so much into the stories. A lot of people only look at stories. They don't even look at their Instagram feed. So if you're using Instagram, make sure you're taking full advantage of stories. And you can manage both of these platforms at the same time on the Facebook Business Manager. There is an app for your phone, and you can do it when you log into Facebook. If you have a watershed page that's an organizational page, you should be able to get set up with the Business Manager. So I want to take a couple looks at posts that is the exact same content, but how Rivers adapted it for different platforms. So here we have a hike we recently hosted, and on Facebook, I posted it to share information using a media hit. But then in the link where I have my text, I added my link to sign up for the hike. So I could share two different links in this post. And really easy, basic text. On Instagram, because it's a visual platform, I can't share that news hit so easily. So what I shared instead was a graphic with all of the information about the event. So you don't have to navigate anywhere else to learn more. You can just see the important information about the hike and hopefully get some folks interested. And then taking a look at another case study, I wanted to show you what a story looks like in Instagram. This was for a recent action alert. And the take action link is clickable. So if you looked at that post just in our Instagram feed, you would see a little line that says link in bio, and we'll talk about that a couple screens down the road. But in the story, I can add that take action link as a clickable link on somebody's phone. So make sure you're using those in your stories. Okay, so 2 more channels I just want to touch on briefly are Twitter and LinkedIn. These are a little bit more niche, and I'm not sure if any of you guys need to take advantage of these, but they can be useful. Twitter is extremely fast-paced, so it's great if you're like live tweeting an event. You're responding to in-the-moment news. If you have like a water contamination issue, you could be tweeting out live information about what to do and how to respond. The one thing I do like about Twitter is decision makers really pay attention, and so does the media. And that's a good and bad thing. So if you're raising the profile on Twitter, there's a good chance people you're trying to reach would see it. LinkedIn is useful as a networking tool. So perhaps if you have an executive director, your executive director would have a LinkedIn profile. Your organization would have a LinkedIn landing page. And what I like about LinkedIn is it's rather easy to get set up for your organization. And the content that you post to Facebook works great on LinkedIn. So you don't have to make any changes or do anything differently. If your organization is trying to attract professionals, if your organization is trying to hire like paid staff, LinkedIn is a good place to have a presence because a lot of job seekers are on LinkedIn and you use LinkedIn to network. So a couple examples of what those posts look like. The one on the left is a LinkedIn post, and you can see it looks almost identical to our Facebook post. And then the one on the right is Twitter. And you'll see we used emojis, and we have it structured in a way that it's really eye-catching because Twitter moves so fast. You need to make sure your content grabs the eye. So you'll see a lot of emojis on there. You'll see a lot of hashtags, and you'll see a lot of @ and tagging other organizations and people. So we talked about the channels. You might have an idea of where might be a fit for your organization. How often should you be creating content? So 60% of nonprofits post 3 to 5 times a week. I think that's about right. Here at Rivers, ideally, we would post on our channels at least once a day. You don't want to do too much and fatigue people, but you do want to have some type of consistency. If you're just getting started and content seems really overwhelming, once a week is completely fine. One post a week, maybe it's a Waterwise Wednesday once a week. That helps you build that audience and have folks starting to see the content you're putting out. Different platforms have different peak times. So once you get more comfortable with social media, if you're scheduling it, you want to be looking at when people are navigating to your page. All the different platforms have reporting tools that you can use to find insights to help you decide when to post. And you can create your posts on a Monday afternoon and have them go out all week, and you don't have to do anything. So another thing that can be kind of tricky when you're creating content is if you're using visual media, a graphic or a photo, different platforms have different aspect ratios for how they display content. So here's a handy little chart that shows you what proportion or what size your graphics should be. And you can see lots of them are different. So it can be a lot if you are managing multiple channels to try to make sure your content is designed to look good on each one. So there's a bunch of tools to help you. The number one tool I recommend for all nonprofits to use is Canva. Canva lets you design graphics. It lets you design flyers, newsletters, basically any type of visual media, you can design it in Canva. And Canva offers a free version for nonprofits, and it is super. I am in Canva every day, all day. It's the best. And if you create one graphic, say for a Facebook post, Canva has a neat tool where you can resize that graphic for all of the different aspects you see on this chart. So say you create a Facebook post like that PFAS graphic I had, but I want to turn it into a Instagram post. I can resize it for Instagram. And then there's just a little tweaking you need to do to make it look good. But Canva is already loaded with all of those aspect ratios and sizes you need to make sure your media looks great on each platform. Where I mentioned in Instagram, you couldn't share links in your posts, but you could share them in your stories. Oftentimes what you'll see if somebody shares a graphic or a photo is they'll say link in bio, more info in bio. And then they use a tool like Linktree or Flow Code or some other type of tool where you can post all your links. So you can have your website, you can have an action alert, you could have event sign up, and folks can just go to that link and find what they need. I know Flow Code has a free version. I believe Linktree does too. So there are some really low cost options out there for you. And then for those of you that have multiple channels and need to figure out how to manage your content and be more diligent about consistency or time management, there are all kinds of tools you can use to schedule out your social media. So you can spend one afternoon creating it, get it scheduled so that it can go out. These are great for like those themed day posts. West Virginia Rivers is currently using Publer, and the free version is fantastic. We're using a low cost subscription. I think we pay like $8 a month. But it has great reporting, great analytics, and it lets us create our content calendar all in one place. So I don't have to go do 4 different social media sites to post content. And it helps advise you to make sure your graphics are the right size and that you're structuring everything in a way that works for each platform. And then I linked to a tool that has that graphic on image sizes, but a lot more information and visual depictions of what each of those platforms look like. So a lot more content than I could cover in this webinar, but I'm hoping all of these tools provide you at least some additional resources that you could dive into to learn a little bit more. So I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions and thinking through, strategizing. So I'm going to check the chat now and stop sharing my screen. And how do I stop sharing? Stop share. And then we can just chat and ask questions about what's going on. I see folks use Canva. Yes, Canva. Quantity over quality. Animals that live at the creek. Yes, lots of good content, comments and questions there. Yeah, we'll have all those links sent out afterwards. So don't worry if you can't click anything. So first question I see here about quality or quantity over quality. Maybe rather than quantity, consistency, I think is most important. So consistently engaging with your audience. So if that's 1 time a week, 3 times a week, you don't want to start posting and then take a month off and then post sporadically. So consistent posting, and that's figuring out a time that works for you. I would say once a week would be a minimum. If you can, more, but you just want to start that habit and that consistency. If you're sending a print newsletter out, or if you're having a board meeting and the public is invited, you can have multiple posts about that one event so that you're consistently creating content and sharing information. Let's see here. What other questions we have? Anybody using Hootsuite? Oh, Maya, I don't know anything about Hootsuite. We had used it and it was not my favorite social media manager. There were problems I know with Hootsuite not talking to Instagram. So maybe that's what you're running into.
Yeah, that was my exact issue when I was a Vista here a couple years ago, and everything was set up to cross post. Worked great for a month or two, and then everything broke and it stopped working.
It's still broken.
I'm not sure. I've just recently come back, so I have to ask our current Vista if it is or not. So you confirming it's still broken?
It was broken in like March. I know that.
Cool, great. All right. Well, maybe did you guys was it Publer?
Yeah.
Is that your preferred?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what Rivers is using. And generally we like to use very low cost subscriptions because generally we are bigger than a free. We use it more than what generally free versions offer, but everybody should take advantage of free tools if you're just starting out because it lets you know if you like it or not. And we chose Publer because it had the most features at a very low monthly subscription.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. We're probably going to look into that.
Yeah. Any other questions or like things you want to talk through on social media? I realized that was a lot of content and a lot of like varied levels of content. So I think we should take this opportunity to talk with each other because I know everybody has success stories and or questions or things that they just want to figure out as a team. Brian, do you have a question? I see you.
Yeah, I almost started talking without unmuting myself. But I was kind of wondering how you all have had success with boosting Facebook posts and what sort of kind of experiences or stories have you had if it kind of goes into the like Hootsuite thing or whatever it is, that kind of like reaching out to Facebook for customer service or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we do boost posts and we create ads. Something I will say, when you are creating ads, you want to be strategic on who you're sending those ads to. And I think for a lot of you, and when you're boosting a post, you have a localized region. So maybe it's for an event, something like that. When you're boosting that post and you're choosing your audience, you want to make sure you're choosing people that like your page people that are friends of people that like your page. And then you can use all kinds of interests or like geographic targeting. So there's a lot you can do to make sure you're getting in front of people that, one, are friendly to your organization, two, can actually engage and could come to your event, and three, people that may not know about you. So I think boosting is a great way to reach new people and make sure folks see your posts. But you want to make sure you're being thoughtful about how you're spending that money and using it. And I think that's something that Facebook has a lot of resources on, how to choose an audience or a lookalike audience. It can get very complicated, but I think for most of you, it's geographic area is and people that don't already like your page. So make sure you're not just advertising it to your current followers.
Do you have any like useful guidelines about reaching out? I know when we were like do our State of the Creek and things, which is an annual newsletter, we try to do our watershed base, and we've used some of those like, you know, lookalike demographics before. And then I've tried to make sure it also goes to like Preston County and some of our rural and more rural areas that aren't right in town that might not hear as much, but then trying to reach people outside of that like might be landowners for future projects that like don't even know about us.
Something I have learned about Facebook advertising in West Virginia is so when you get so narrow on your ad specifications and lookalike audiences, we don't have enough population to make it worthwhile. Like the amount of eyeballs we can actually have on our post isn't that useful. So people that like your page and their friends is always good. And then just like general geographic or big broad subsets like anglers or
some of the like lookalike demographics they pull up,
they're too narrow.
Hilarious. They're like for particular books and things. So we're like, let's go. And like greater Morgantown area.
Yeah, West Virginia's population is too small to make that really work for us. And it's something that we've learned over the years that is just what some of the bigger groups could do, and like those lookalike audiences, they're not always going to be the most helpful when you're creating an ad. And I wanted to get back to Brian too on his question about using their support. So I have never had good luck with customer support or one-on-one support on Facebook, but I do like their educational resources in their nonprofit business center. Their articles and their guides are useful. Also a plug for Canva. Canva has a whole learning university program where you can learn about like how to make a graphic look nice. And they're like 3 to 5 minute little short videos. And they have really upped my game in terms of creating graphics because I have zero design or communications in my background. And Canva really helped me learn how to do that through their learning resources. And Meta's resources are pretty good too. I think I saw another question here in the chat. What are your favorite metrics for evaluate? I love this question, Martin, because lots of times when people look at social media, they're looking at how many followers do I have? How many likes do I have? And that's not the number one metric we should be looking at. What we should be looking at are what are our engagements. So I like to look at how many clicks, likes, shares, comments in general a particular post gets, and then take a look at that as a post by post so I can learn which are my top performing posts, which of my content is getting the most information, what are folks caring about? Because another tricky thing about social media is all these platforms have their own algorithms, which you can kind of figure out, and these algorithms determine what news feeds or feeds people, like whether someone will see your post or not. And a lot of that is determined by community engagement with your content and your engagement back with followers. So if somebody comments and it's like non-offensive and great, you should like that comment and say thank you, because not only are you being a good steward to your supporters, the social media channels will say like, oh, this is an engaged member in our nonprofit, in our, you know, Facebook nonprofit community. We're going to put this in more news feeds because people will find it more useful. So there's 2 reasons why you should respond back to folks that are communicating with you. If you're looking at a platform and a page's performance on whole, I like to look at the number of people navigating to our page from a post. So we're looking at somebody saw our post and they were curious, and then they navigated over to our main Facebook page to take a look. To me, that's more useful than the ever-growing number of likes and followers. Does that answer your question, Martin? And all of these platforms have really great reporting mechanisms so that you can take a look at their dashboards and know what's performing well, so that you can start to make decisions on the type of content folks like to see. Check the chat. Any other questions here?
Yes. What has dealing with trolls, dealing with the internet trolls, how, yeah, of course, you know, I feel like most of the time we end up just like deleting the posts, but yeah, what
Brian,
works for you?
Brian, who are you with?
Friends of Deckers Creek.
Friends of Deckers Creek. You have trolls at Friends of Deckers Creek? Like, so disheartening to hear.
Every now and again, it's I mean, they aren't consistent, but it seems like sometimes a lot of people are just being really annoyed and throwing shade on us just for the sake of throwing shade on us.
So I tend to say, and on our social media policy is, we don't delete anything and we don't respond to negative comments. If there is abusive language or threats or anything beyond like, you guys just like to take our money, or I don't even know like what kind of post a troll would make, we would delete it because it wouldn't adhere to like our standards of how we communicate. But if it's just like, I don't agree, XYZ is good for West Virginia and you're wrong, I would just ignore that and not engage. And the more you engage with people that want to either play devil's advocate or share their positions and statements on your platform, the more energy you give them, the more you're going to see that. So if you just don't engage, it will go away. And you know, some people get really offended when you delete their post. So unless it's like really abhorrent, just let everyone see that they're being not like the rest of your community, and it will get buried eventually through Facebook.
What do we, so like, I don't know if this is what Brian's referring to too, but like spam, like we have every once in a while in we have a Facebook page, and then we also have a group, Friends of Deckers group too, because our community members like to chat on that. And sometimes somebody will just be like, my son's making Deckers Creek shirts, and it's like an anchor. And
that's constant. Yes.
Are you guys getting that? Like,
so we don't offer any groups right now, but I know that is a constant problem in groups. And
I've tried to make it so you have to like answer some questions and
Right.
stuff before you can get into the group to prevent some of that, but
So you're already taking the right measures. Just delete those spam bots. That's all it is. They're just spam. And groups are notorious for that. So that's
Yeah.
a widespread group issue. But you're doing the right thing by having questions so that you're making sure real people are joining. And when you see that spam, just delete it. Because that's all it is.
Yeah. Uses up a lot of energy when we have a few hands. But okay. Thank you.
Yeah. What other questions do we have? Yeah, I see. Carrie says you can block all messages so that there aren't comments. Yep. That's a good strategy to use, especially if you know you'll be posting something that is controversial or you expect some blowback. But generally, I like to recommend allowing engagement because the overlords of social media that decide those algorithms want to see that two-way conversation. Do you have advice about echo chambers and breaking out of them? Martin, do you mean like, maybe you want to ask that question verbally so I make sure I understand.
I just, so often on social media, it's like the same people saying ditto. And,
Oh, so
and
everybody
you just don't talk to anybody who you don't, anybody new. Maybe your algorithms for promoting posts help get you out of that, or
Yeah,
maybe not. Any
that
thoughts?
is a drawback. So, I mean, primarily talking about, so on Twitter and Instagram, you have more opportunities to meet folks beyond your followers or your likes. So this generally is something that would happen on Facebook. So the only people seeing your information are people that have decided to like or follow your page. So there are some strategies. I think that would be a whole other kind of strategy and presentation on how to break into new audiences and how to be strategic about that. But I would recommend, if you have those echo chambers and you feel like everybody's just saying the same thing, listen to what that thing is. And if it's something that you are working on or agree with or is somehow related to your work, see how you can relate to it in a positive and uplifting way, to get folks looking at you and your leadership. But I do tend to think that is the nature of social media, is you only see what you like. You only see things that the social media channels think that you would be interested in seeing. So unfortunately, I don't know if there's any way to completely avoid that echo chamber effect.
Actually, I was gonna chime in about that. I'm not sure, Martin, if this is what you fully mean by the echo chamber, but one cool thing I've noticed about with Friends of Deckers Creek, from what I've realized trying to do like, these Facebook posts and doing all that stuff, there's actually a button where you can even where it can send invites to people to follow your page. And so that's really helpful. Like it will just give you a whole list of people and it's like, do you want to send invites? And so I will continually like check that if they're just like liking your post, but they're not following you. So it's a way to kind of like increase your awareness and get more people to kind of like follow your organization. So that's been one really cool thing I've noticed.
That's a great tip, Grace. Yeah. Take advantage of that send invite link on your pages. That is super helpful for Facebook and something that we really use to help build our audience. Yeah, Maya, we'll be sending this recording out in an email, and it will be on our website after this presentation. All right, so that's just about an hour. specific questions or want to talk through something or bounce ideas off someone, give me a call or send me my email. We'll get that information out to everybody after this presentation. And there is so much information out there on how to make social media work for you. And I guess my big takeaway is you just have to try stuff and see what's working and talk to each other. Go find everybody's social media pages. Maybe we can do that in like a group email afterwards. We all share our URLs to our social media channels if we have them, and make sure we're all following each other so that we can get some ideas and inspiration. All righty. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.